Hi.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new here, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. Y'all, the day is finally here. It feels like just yesterday that Miss Colleen Hoover broke the internet by announcing that she was going to be continuing the It Ends With Us world by releasing, literally just got the package in the mail, opening it with you guys. I might have taken a peek, don't judge me. By releasing It Starts With Us. I can't believe I'm already holding this in my hand. Honestly, the last like 6 months or so that we've known this book is coming out, it's all just felt like a blur. And obviously I just got this book. I haven't read it yet, but I'm here to review it for you guys today. That will be coming later, but I have some things that I want to say before I read it because I have a lot of thoughts. I have some predictions. I have a lot of general anxiety surrounding this book, what it's going to be, what it might not be. Just a lot of things I want to say that I want to say before I've actually read it. So if you don't care about any of this preamble, I'll have chapters listed in this video in the description and then these little arrows down here. You can skip ahead to the review if you just want to hear that. But I do just kind of generally want to talk about this for a minute because there's a lot going on here. So as we all know, It Starts With Us is a continuation of the It Ends With Us world. And It Ends With Us had to have been the most talked about book of the last year. I think every single person and their mother read it. I mean, Kylie Jenner literally read it. And then I felt like after that, it just was like every single person had this book in their hand. Like I couldn't go to a bookstore without seeing it on the shelves or seeing somebody reading it. Like it was everywhere. And I just have a lot of feelings surrounding this book, a lot of thoughts that I just want to express for a minute because I posted a review on this book over a year ago now, and it is now the most viewed video on my channel. It has well over 100,000 views, which is a terrifying amount of people. I still get comments on that video every single day. Like y'all have not let me let this book go. I still remember every aspect of it because seriously, I get comments every day. And it's really funny, like my experience with this book because like, I don't want to be one of those people that's like, oh, I read it before it was big, before it was popular. But like at the time that I read it, it was right before it was getting popular. And that being said, like I didn't know what it was about, okay? I went into this book entirely blind, which I think I know is the entire point of this book. And this is something that I have just like wanted to talk about for so long now because this book obviously is hugely popular now. Like everybody knows about it and everybody knows what this book is centered around, which is obviously domestic abuse, domestic violence. When I found this book, when I originally heard about this book, just heard it was good, I knew nothing. I assumed it was a romance, so I went into it completely blind. And because of that, I don't think I've ever been so impacted by a book. I mean, the entire purpose of this book is that you are meant to be put in the main character's shoes. You are meant to fall in love with this man and then come to find out that he is an abuser and you're supposed to be put in this difficult situation, and it's supposed to give you an entirely new lens to look at domestic violence and to realize that the situation is not always as simple as it seems and that it's not just so easy to leave. Like there's just so many impactful messages within this book that, I mean, it tore my heart out of my chest. When I started this book, I was in love with Ryle. Like I thought that he was so charming and I completely fell in love with him, was so wrapped up in their story. And then obviously we're shocked completely out of left field whenever we see what happens with him and Lily. And so this book broke my heart. It destroyed me. And I feel like I really went on this insane journey with this book. And you know, I came out of it on the other end thinking, wow, like this is obviously because it affected me so deeply. Like, it's an amazing book. It's so well written. It's so impactful. It's something that I think every person could benefit from reading. But now that this book is so big and everybody knows what it's about and they're going into the book with the preconceived notion, is that even the right way to say that? Just they know going into it that it's a story about abuse. So it's like, I get comments now, present day, of people that are like, oh, like everyone says they saw the red flags going in, right? They're like, oh, so obvious. And it's like, it was obvious because you were looking for it. And this is just something that has frustrated me for a long time. Like, I feel like this went from what was supposed to be a story to help people understand abuse and not be so quick to judge it and be put in somebody's shoes in this very difficult situation. It's kind of over time turned from that to like this romanticized knight in shining armor rescue of Lily from Ryle by Atlas, and everybody's like romanticizing Atlas. We're like, in the first, like when I read it, Atlas was such a like afterthought to me. Obviously, like, he's a sweet guy. Obviously he does help Lily out. Obviously she ends up with him in the end of this book. But like, I feel like as it's gotten more popular and as people know more about it and they're reading it, I just think the like narrative has shifted a little bit, and it's just something that has bothered me for a long time. And so many people now saying like, this is my favorite book ever. That just like makes me question a lot of things, because I can fully understand if you're like, this is the best book I've ever read, or like this is a great book. But like for me, like I can differentiate like a great book from like a favorite book or a book I love, because like I would not say I loved this book whatsoever. I mean, it like every time I think about it, every time I see it on my like Instagram timeline, people talking about it, it like makes my chest hurt. Like this book emotionally screwed me up for a good week. Like it's a very deep, difficult story. So that being said, when it was announced that this story was going to be continued, I had so many people messaging me being like, are you so excited for It Starts With Us? Like, oh my God, I can't believe this is coming out. And I'm like, honestly, not really. Like, I'm not excited about it, because I know that this is supposed to be like a continuation. It's supposed to be, you know, Lily starting over with Atlas. It's supposed to be her and Atlas's story. But like I said, obviously I didn't want her to end up with Ryle, knowing what we know now, going through the journey. No, that's not what I'm saying. But like, I was never that obsessed with Atlas. So like now having a whole book about her and Atlas, I'm like not overly excited about that. I'm sure Colleen Hoover can manage to make it entertaining. I'm sure it'll be good, but I just like, no. My general answer is no, I'm not excited, because that reason, but also the other reason, and my main reason honestly, is that this book was never meant to exist, okay? Like, Colleen Hoover had no intentions of continuing this story. Like, when It Ends With Us blew up and got super popular, I remember early on when that started happening, and Colleen Hoover went on her TikTok and she's like, okay guys, so many of you are saying like you want an Atlas book, you want another book, you want more Atlas, but like, what do you guys want? Like, what are you wanting from that? So that just tells me that she wasn't planning to do this. That is not to say that like it's not going to be good or not going to be well done, but because like she's the author of this story and this wasn't something she planned to do, and because she's doing it to make the fans happy and to, I'm sure, cash out on a massive paycheck, which I'm not blaming her, that just kind of makes me question how genuine it is and how, you know, good it's gonna be. Like, that's just all I have to say about it. So I'm trying my best to go into this book with an open mind, but I will not lie when I tell you guys, like, I'm not that excited for it. So I just wanted to get that out here in the first place. Like, I have not looked at a single teaser. Every time I see it on Colleen's page, I scroll past it, because like, I don't want to know. I want to just go into it and see what it's gonna be. One thing that I'm kind of upset about is I thought there's this big gap in It Ends With Us where we don't know what happened to Atlas. Like, we don't know what was happening in his life. It's this big like kind of blank space for him. So I thought originally we were gonna go back and see like what Atlas was doing during those times, like how he was thinking of Lily, how he was like aiming to get back to her, all of that. And Colleen Hoover herself has said that originally was her plan, and that this book was kind of going to be a prequel, but then over time as she started to write it and it developed further, that's not at all what it is. It's actually fully a sequel, and it takes place after the events of It Ends With Us. So I think the book is really just gonna be her, Lily, you know, beginning her relationship with Atlas, her recovering from this abusive relationship. I assume we'll see some of Ryle, because they obviously have a child together. They're gonna be like co-parenting and whatnot. So I guess it's just gonna be their love story. I think there obviously has to be more to it than that, more to it that we don't know about yet. So yeah, that's where I'm currently at. That's what I'm thinking, that's what I'm feeling. I am going to start this book literally right after I turn off this camera, and then the next time you see me, I will come back with all of my thoughts, and I sincerely hope that I loved it. I'm gonna have as open of a mind as I can, but y'all just be prepared, because I'm gonna be honest with you, because that's what we do on this channel. So yeah guys, I'm gonna get started, and I will see you probably tomorrow with my thoughts. Here goes nothing. All right, hello guys. I have finished this book now, and I actually ended up reading the entire thing last night because I read most of it in one sitting. It got to be like midnight, and I had about 100 pages left, and I felt like I was at like a decent stopping place. So I was like, you know what, just take a break, finish it tomorrow. But I got up and I started to get ready for bed, and I was just having chest pains. I was having such intense anxiety around this book and around what was going to happen, and an event in this book that I know was coming up. Like, I just knew if I went to sleep without finishing it, I was gonna be thinking about it all night. I was gonna wake up anxious, needing to know the ending. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I came back to the couch, I sat down, and I finished the entire thing. So now I'm here to talk about it. I do want to kind of just generally, because again, going into this, I didn't really know what it was going to be about. I didn't really know the vibes. So I do want to give like as much of a spoiler-free sort of synopsis that I can. And then I obviously do need to dive deeper and talk about this a little more. But I just want to say right off the bat, I wasn't too far off in my predictions of how I was going to feel about this book and its contents and all of that. But yeah, more on that later. Basically, this story quite literally picks up exactly where It Ends With Us left off. If you remember, at the end of It Ends With Us, we see Lily and Atlas run into each other on the street after 2 years of not talking. Lily has obviously had Emerson at this point. She's about a year old, and she runs into Atlas, and we're kind of left with thinking that they're gonna have a happy ending at the end of It Ends With Us. Like, that's what we're left with. We understand that, you know, they've found each other again. They're obviously gonna try to be together, and Lily has left Ryle, and they have Emerson, and it's kind of just, you know, you just kind of think, all right, they figured it out. Well, this book is entirely that process of them figuring it out. It literally picks up right after that interaction on the street happened, and we actually start with Atlas's point of view in this story, and the entire story alternates points of view between Atlas and Lily. And so really the entire story is just Lily and Atlas again finding each other, wanting to start a relationship, because their entire relationship has very much been a right person, wrong time sort of thing. Like, they've had this deep love for one another for so long, but the timing has just never been right, and now they're two established adults. They're both single. Like, all the cards have kind of fallen into place. It's time for them to give each other a try. But Lily is obviously in a very tough situation because she is recently divorced, and she's in the process of learning how to co-parent with Ryle. And this would be a tough situation in general, just like being a divorced single parent, having a child, having another person in the picture when you're wanting to get into a new relationship. But this situation is so much worse, obviously, given the fact that we know Lily and Ryle's history, we know Ryle as a human, and we can pretty much guess that Ryle is not going to be too thrilled about Lily being with anybody but him. Obviously, and we know that he has a temper, and something that is really not good for his temper is any sort of mention or thought of Atlas. Even though Lily was never once unfaithful to Ryle, nothing ever happened with Atlas. We know that nothing would have ever happened with Atlas had Ryle and Lily's relationship been healthy. She would have stayed faithful to him. She loves him. Obviously, her and Atlas have this really intense history back from whenever they were kids, and it's something that meant a lot to her at the time. It's something that she's carried with her. But as adults, you know, she found Ryle, she fell in love with Ryle, and he was the person that she committed to. But Ryle, for him, jealousy did not have an expiration date, and he was never gonna let this Atlas thing go. So now that him and Lily are no longer together, Atlas coming back into the picture, like, you can just tell right off the bat, not gonna be a great situation. So that is really like what this story is. It's Lily and Atlas trying to start their journey together, but on top of that, there is like a new element of this story introduced, a new sort of, you know, plot line with Atlas, present day. More trauma, more drama, more painful, anxiety-inducing moments. There's a lot of also revisiting the past. You know, when this book originally was announced, we sort of thought it was going to be a prequel. We thought that we were going to get to see some of Atlas's point of view from the past, and I was hoping we would get to see some of those years filled in where him and Lily weren't together. But that's not really what happens in this book. Honestly, it's just a lot of rehashing of a lot of the things we already know about. The journal entries that we read in the first book, there's a whole lot of those in this book, once again, verbatim. Some of them, you know, from Atlas's point of view a little bit, without giving it away. It's like the journal comes back up again. We know that was a big part of the last book. Ryle read the journals. He learned a whole lot about Atlas and Lily's relationship from that. So now, you know, Atlas is seeing these journals himself, and we're revisiting these events and we're getting his take on some of them. Honestly, it was a lot of that, and it felt really repetitive. Like, I kind of felt like we were just rehashing the same stories that we already knew, the same journal entries we already knew. So a lot of that, but yeah, that is basically as much as I can say about this book, spoiler free. I found it to honestly be a very stressful time. Like, it's funny because in the front of this book, it's like Colleen Hoover has a little author's note that's saying, you know, this is a lighter book and everybody wants to see Atlas and Lily's happy ending, and like, you guys deserve this, they deserve this, like making it seem like this book is going to be so much more light and fun. But it's like, it wasn't. It seriously wasn't. Obviously there's some nice moments, there is a happy ending, but like cover to cover until essentially the very end of this book, I was so stressed out because obviously we know going into this that Ryle is involved. Ryle is a permanent fixture in Lily's life, and he's obviously not going to approve of this relationship. So the entire time that this relationship is building up, you can't not have Ryle in the back of your mind, because we see a lot of him in this book, a lot of him in the beginning of this book. Like, you know, this is all going to come to a head. And I had such a hard time enjoying the moments with Lily and Atlas and what they were going through and them reconnecting, because the entire time I'm just like, Ryle is not going to be okay with this. And it was just really, really hard for me. I felt the same sort of chest pains with this book that I had with Reminders of Him, which was Colleen Hoover's last book. It's like, I get that the writing, I'm not saying the writing wasn't good. I mean, I'm not a Colleen Hoover hater. I know that this woman is a great writer. I love Ugly Love. It is like in my top 3 favorite books of all time. I love several of her books, but I just feel like some of her books recently, or at least some of the ones I've read recently, Reminders of Him was her latest release. It's like, yes, the book has a happy ending, but it's like, if I have to go through this immense like stress and anxiety for 300 pages to get to that happy ending, like, it's just not an enjoyable experience for me. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad book or a bad story, but it's like, it's not, like, I read for fun, I read for enjoyment, I read to find happiness, and I know that like not everything can be butterflies and rainbows, and like this book, this story, it deals with very real issues. Like, this situation, as horrible as it is very much something that could happen in real life, and it's rough and it sucks, and I get it, but I don't want to read about it, and that's like just how I feel. So yeah, at this point, like, I just want to talk a little bit more about this with spoilers. So if you haven't read it, you don't want spoilers, exit. This is your official warning. Yeah, Ryle. Freaking Ryle. It's like, I have such a like hole in my chest when it comes to Ryle, because like I've said in this video multiple times, going into It Ends With Us, I didn't know what it was about. I fell head over heels in love with Ryle. I thought he was so charming. I didn't see the red flags because I didn't know there were supposed to be any red flags. Call me an idiot if you want to, but I fell head over heels in love with this man. Like, I thought like, oh, he's so great and perfect. And then obviously we learned he's not so great and perfect. And he kind of turns out to be like the most vile human you can imagine. But by the end of the book, you know, we know that Lily leaves him, they divorce, they agree that they're going to co-parent their child together. It's like the child makes this whole situation so difficult. Like, it's hard enough to have a difficult relationship, have someone in your life that has left you with trauma and scars, but it's like, once you have a child with that person, like, they are never not gonna be in your life. Like, you know, if you're choosing to raise this child together, he's going to permanently be there. And that is like one of my deepest, darkest fears. And I don't even know why. Like, my parents aren't divorced or anything, but I have such a fear that, like, I'm going to marry someone and I'm gonna, like, pick the wrong person and I'm gonna have children with them, and it's like gonna, that's a whole side tangent. But it's like, that alone is such a, like, emotional trigger for me. Like, I have this, like, weird commitment thing, and it's like, imagine having to be committed to someone that you, like, are genuinely terrified to be around. Like, again, I get this is a real issue and this happens in real life, but it just makes this book and this story so hard to read. So it's like, the situation sucks, and it's funny. Like, Ryle's character, again, I loved him from the beginning, obviously did not love him, absolutely hated him by the end, didn't want him and Lily together. But one comment that I have gotten a million times on my review of this book, and that I honestly agree with, is that, you know, Ryle is obviously, like, not a great person. He's got a lot of issues, a lot of trauma, he's got anger issues, temper issues, but it does kind of suck that we don't get to see any sort of, like, development from him in this book. Like, in a lot of ways, you almost want to, like, root for Ryle. You want him to get better. Not saying him and Lily should have been together. I'm not saying that at all, but it's like, you almost wish, like, he had some, like, redeeming qualities, or that you got to see, like, a journey of him become a better person. Even if he's not in Lily's life, like, as her husband, like, you just hope that he can become a better person. So I thought we were going to maybe see that in this book, but no, we literally didn't. Like, Ryle is just the worst person. Every time I would see his name on the page or see it coming, like, I instantly tensed up. It's like, he had no character development. Like, he is just an asshole. Like, he's a gaslighting, manipulative, abusive asshole. And that doesn't stop once you get to this book. It's like, the situation is hard. They are divorced. They have a child together. Emerson is just as much Ryle's child as she is Lily's child. And I'm sure it's difficult when you have a child to imagine that child being around another person, or, like, another person being in a relationship with your ex and being in the same house as your child. I get that's not an easy situation, but Ryle just, like, handles it so horribly. And, like, he treats Lily in such a way that she's just, like, terrified of him and has to walk on eggshells around him. And just the things that he says, like, it just made my blood boil every time he opened his mouth in this book. And it's like, the whole freaking time that Atlas and Lily are gonna start this relationship, like, you know, she's keeping it from Ryle, obviously, because she's scared and she knows he's not gonna approve, but you know that the entire story is going to come to a head and that Ryle is going to learn about it. So it's like, I could not enjoy a second of this because I was just so stressed out for, like, I constantly thought Ryle was gonna burst through the door. Like, I knew they were gonna get caught. I knew that was going to happen. I knew there was gonna be a discussion around it. So it's just like, every interaction with him sucked. And then every time he wasn't there, I was still thinking about him because I knew this was gonna happen. So it was just very stressful for me. That aside, it's like, Atlas, everyone loves Atlas. I get it. Like, he's obviously a saint. He's a great person. I mean, we love him. I don't want to, like, discredit Atlas as, like, a book boyfriend or a book husband, but it's like, I just have a hard time focusing on him in this story because it's just, there's so much else going on. I mean, I'm glad him and Lily started to date, got to get closer, got to bond a little more. We got to see them again revisit the past and get Atlas's take on a lot of what happened to them in the past. It's like, it was cute, but I, again, just think it was really repetitive. It's like, we've talked about this. Like, we've seen their first kiss. We know what happened the first time they slept together. We know that she took him in and cared for him and all, like, we know all of this stuff. So it felt like we were just kind of, like, rehashing that over and over. Like, there were pages upon pages of this book that were, like, copy pasted from this book, like journal entries. And it just was kind of like, okay, I don't know. Atlas obviously also in this story had a whole nother sort of storyline. His mother comes back. We learn that he has a brother. And honestly, the whole thing with Josh, the brother, was very cute. Like, it was very sweet. I love a found family trope. It gave me the warm and fuzzies that Atlas immediately cared so much for this brother that he didn't even know he had, was so willing to take him under his wing, wanted more than anything for him to not have to go through what he went through as a child. Like, that all was very beautiful. The whole, it starts with us, we're gonna be a new family tree. it was beautiful. But it's like, It Ends With Us was so traumatic and hard to read and awful with the abuse. So it's like we traded one abuse for another. It's like, let's trade domestic abuse in a relationship to like, is adult child abuse still domestic abuse? Sorry, I'm an idiot. But like, it's just more abuse, more trauma. It's like now the mom is like slapping around Josh. Like, it's just, I'm sick. I'm tired of reading it, you know? Like, it's just, again, I know this is a real situation and things that happen and issues that should be talked about, but like, this book was supposed to be happy. It was supposed to be like Lily and Atlas's happy ending, and it's like, here I am reading about more abuse and more trauma, and it just like sucked. Like, I didn't want more of that. But I mean, in the end, that was cute. You know, we got Josh, we got Atlas's mother seems to finally somewhat understand that she's a terrible mother, and it seems like she's going to put in some effort to be a slightly better mother. And Lily and Atlas eventually, after confronting Ryle, after he lost his shit, of course, and stormed into Atlas's restaurant and punched him in the face, because of course he did. Like, I literally can't stand Ryle. He makes me nauseous. And then it's like he's confronted, like, it's like the whole book is leading up to like this intervention, right? Where Lily has to talk to Ryle and she brings in Alyssa. And like, their entire little kitchen table intervention was like a page and a half long. Like, I'm sorry. I felt like that should have maybe been a longer conversation, and we should have actually discussed with Ryle like adults about why his behavior is not okay and try to make him see reason. Like, there was no conversation there. Like, I was waiting for that. Like, I thought, okay, we're being put through more of this shit with Ryle. Like, we're seeing him be a horrible human being. We're seeing him gaslight and manipulate the hell out of Lily this entire book. She's so strong throughout it, and we're gonna get that aha moment, which we got a little bit when Atlas, you know, kind of confronted him after he stormed into his restaurant and punched him in the face. I mean, Atlas did hit Ryle with some of that truth, but it's like, I wanted it from Lily. I wanted more of like a conversation, and for him to actually realize that what he's doing is wrong and why the way he acts is wrong, and how Atlas is not the problem here, and that he is the common denominator in these issues. Like, I don't understand why that conversation was not more impactful. Like, it was just, you don't get to see Emmy by yourself anymore, and Alyssa and Marshall support me in this, and you need to go to anger management. Okay, end of story. And he just like storms out of the kitchen and is like, okay, fine, I agree. And there's just like no further discussion of it. Like, I don't know. It's just, I so desperately, again, did not want Ryle and Lily to be together at all, but it's like, I would have loved to see some more development out of him, and for you to see that, I mean, there's opportunity for people to get better. Like, I just think it could have been like a happier ending. He's not gonna 360 change, and I know we got to see that a little bit with the end, where he was obviously okay with, you know, Emerson being given to Atlas and Atlas and Lily living together. Like, he let it happen without him storming their house and trying to burn it down, which I guess is progress, but I just felt really unfulfilled by all of that. Like, I just didn't think it was great. But yeah, guys, I mean, overall, I think you can tell by everything I've been saying, I just don't think this book needed to exist. And that is just my opinion. You know, if you enjoyed it, if you liked it, I think an issue for me in general is like, I'm just not a big fan of like epilogues or bonus content. Like, I like to just kind of interpret things the way that I want to interpret them. I don't need to be spoon-fed every little thing that happens. Like, you know, this book ends with the assumption that Atlas and Lily found their happily ever after, which, you know, they did. But it's like, I didn't need to read all the nitty-gritty, not fun, complicated, painful, traumatic details of them getting to that point. You know, just for like a few scenes of them being cutesy, a few like happy quotes. It's just like, it's not fun to read. It's traumatic. It's painful. It's makes my chest hurt. And I don't know. I wasn't super impressed with it. I feel like I would have preferred a prequel book or a book from Alice's point of view. seeing him, you know, in those years that him and Lily weren't together. But in all honesty, I would have preferred for it to just not exist because I don't think it was needed. I think this story ended perfectly where it was and that it did not need to continue, and we could have just interpreted all of this, assumed all of this from that happily ever after. But I mean, yeah, that's just my opinion. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, as always. This kind of just, I'm glad I got it out of the way. I'm glad I'm done with both of these books, and I don't plan to read them ever again. That being said, Colleen Hoover is a very talented woman, obviously. I don't need to say that. She has some great books. She has a way of making people feel things. I mean, these books impacted me, made me hurt, just affected me in a way that like no other book has. Like no other author has gotten me this emotionally riled up. Riled, ew, I didn't like that pun there, but it just came out. Yeah, like I'm not denying her ability as a writer, but just for me, like I'm reviewing the book and my simple answer is that I didn't enjoy these books. And I think it's a little bit harmful, if I'm being quite honest, to label these books as romance. Like I think they're women's fiction, and I think people get a little caught up on like trying to romanticize these, and I don't know, I just don't get it. It's like, if you love these books, good on you, but let's be a little careful about just like plastering these across our Instagram feed and being like, oh my god, romance, butterflies, rainbows, this is the greatest thing I've ever read, because like it's some deep dark shit. Like I don't know if I like read a different book, but I'm like, I don't know. But yeah guys, those are all my thoughts. Honestly a little nervous to put this out there, but it's what we do on this channel. We gotta be honest. I'm sure some of you agree with me. If at least one person agrees with me, I'll feel validated. And if not, I guess I don't need to feel validated. Whatever, it's whatever. We're all readers, we all have different opinions, different tastes. Colleen Hoover, you know, you don't need my opinion. You don't need my praise. You have plenty of it. But yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. If you got this far, I would love to hear your thoughts about this book down below. If you loved it, if you hated it, if you agree that it maybe just didn't need to exist, if you were expecting something different from it, literally any thoughts you have, I'd love to hear them. If you'd like to DM me on Instagram, my DMs are always open. I check them as often as I can. But yeah guys, other than that, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, thank you for all your support. I still cannot believe over 100,000 people have watched me talk about this book. Blows my mind every single day, and I love you guys so much, and it's so crazy the growth that this channel has had since this book review came out. But yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. I love you so much, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.